So let's talk about legacy access, right? Because this is essentially kind of the development of why Xona exists and why our competitors exist, right? So legacy access is typically a VPN solution. We use encryption to mask the traffic. Ultimately, you're just creating using an agent to encrypt traffic between a remote endpoint, as we see here, accessing critical infrastructure. And even though Xona supports OT as a primary market, critical can be whatever any environment defines, right? A critical infrastructure could be a host from a hypervisor standpoint, a firewall, a switch, a database server, an application server, not just IoT devices or SCADA devices, right? So there's a lot of mixture between OT and IT, and really at the end of the day, it's just tech. I was watching a blog the other day from one of my counterparts, our partners at the Nozomi, mentioned that we got to get away from the IT OT convergence methodology and just talk about that it's just tech. Obviously, there's going to be different protocols and procedures and best practices along the way, but at the end of the day, we just need to look at it as tech and who owns it. I think overall, the organization owns the tech, right? So we need to protect it regardless. Once we moved away, we started saying, hey, VPN is just not secure enough. Now we're coming into the VPN or RPAM kind of methodology. VPN is identity based. You essentially encapsulate that protocol. And then we're going to go into RPAM, which now we're adding roles, time and location and system-based kind of permissions along the way, as well as a VPN solution. And then now zero trust. So now we're going into the application layer, providing a device profile. So only certain devices can access certain pieces of equipment. And then we're going to get behavioral based analysis based on the traffic that's being submitted. But at the end of the day, all of these technologies are based on encryption. And that is what we want to get away from. So what we recommend from Xona is a break in that connection. So we are essentially terminating those vulnerable protocols, the RDPs, the VNCs, the SSHs, the web protocols, which is 80 and 443 traffic. We are breaking those connections at the boundary of our gateway, and what we are presenting to users is just encrypted PNG pixels. And that is a difference, a huge difference of how a lot of our competitors address this market. A PNG pixel is a static image. There's no data bus protocol. So if an adversary on the remote end is infiltrated, third parties, right? There's the zero trust approach, right? We do not trust any asset that is entering the critical environment. That is how we separate those protocols. We treat every asset the same from the outside as well from the inside. We don't require any agents, no cloud dependencies, no downtime, and all we require is just 443 inbound traffic to our appliance. And I'll go through some diagram here in a few minutes that'll kind of give us a bigger picture of how we can deploy our solution inside any environment. And that's the beauty of the flexibility of our product. But again, the one thing that I do want to harp here is that any remote endpoint, if it's been breached at any point, Xona will stop that user from being able to insert or maliciously or adversely insert or even a third-party user inherently insert a malicious file or code into your environment without some workflow where you, as the approver, as the owner of these pieces of equipment inside the critical infrastructure, has a say-so of when that user can move a file or some type of code into that environment. And that is what we provide, right? Obviously, we do either provide 100% or a reduction of the attack surface here. We isolate those critical protocols at the boundary, as I mentioned,